Concerns are on the rise about serious cracks forming in the North Korean leadership, while South Korea, China, and Japan step up regional cooperation against Pyongyang's provocations. The Korean won has been on a tear, igniting fresh concerns for the country's exporters. With the possibility of a sooner-than-expected Fed rate hike thrown into the mix, where is the won headed? Welcome to News Inside. I'm An Chang-hyun. Let's meet our panelists. Professor Shin Sang-hyuk from Kyung University Graduate School of International Studies is back with us. And Dr. Bong Young-sik from Yonsei University Institute for North Korea Studies is with us as well. The recent defection of North Korea's deputy ambassador to the UK has triggered a fair amount of speculation about the stability of Pyongyang's leadership. We discuss what changes are unfolding in the North and how they will affect inter-Korean relations.
On the day Seoul and Washington kicked off the joint Ulchi Freedom Guardian drills, President Park Geun-hye chaired a security meeting in which she offered an assessment of conditions in North Korea.
북한의 주요 인사들까지 탈북과 외국으로의 망명이 이어지는 등 심각한 균열 조짐을 보이면서 체제 동요의 가능성이 커지고 있습니다.
North Korea's deputy ambassador to the UK, Tae Yong-ho, is not the only high-profile official to escape the regime in the recent months. A series of people from the elite and upper class have fled the north as well. Seoul's Unification Ministry explains the reasons behind their escapes have been changing. In the past, hunger and economic struggles were some of the main causes, but thanks to the grassroots market economy, some of the greatest difficulties have been alleviated. More people now are escaping due to disgruntlement about the regime and with hopes of pursuing a better life. The number of overall defectors, which took a tumble when Kim Jong-un first assumed power due to strong crackdowns, has recently surged. This, to some, signals growing instability within the North Korean leadership. In the midst of this, during the early hours of the 24th, North Korea test-fired a submarine-launched ballistic missile. The missile, fired from the North's Sinpo, flew 500 kilometers, reaching Japan's air defense identification zone. The launch is likely a clear demonstration that South Korea easily falls within the range of these missiles.
확고한 연합 방위태세를 바탕으로 북한의 어떤 도발에도 단호하고 강력하게 대응할 것입니다.
The move is also seen as Pyongyang's effort to suppress any possible instabilities within the country.
외형상으로는 무력 시의 성격이 담겨 있지만 실제적으로는 해용 공사의 망명권에 대한 이슈를 한미군사훈련으로 전환시키려는.
As the global community steps up sanctions against Pyongyang for its nuclear and missile development, more pressure is piling up against it. We look at what this means for the North Korean regime.
오히려 지금은 북한 체제, 김정은 체제가 그러한 부분적으로는 그 탈북이랄지 이런 것들이 이루어지고 있지만 북한 내부적으로 경제 상황이 그렇게 나쁘지 않고 북중 관계, 경제협력 관계가 과거보다는 나아지고 있는 상황이기 때문에 이 상황에서 이것이 꼭 붕괴나 체제 균열로 간다 이렇게 보기는 어렵다고 봅니다. 또 김정은 체제가 위로부터 뭔가 그 주민들에게 또는 북한의 간부들에게 상당히 좀 위로부터 강압적인 방식의 어떤 그 통치가 부분적으로 이루어지고 있다. 이런 또 분석도 가능하다고 봅니다. SLBM 발사 성공은 결국 태영호 공사 탈북 이후에 북한 체제에 좀 뭔가 흐트러지는 부분들을 결속을 꾀하는 김정은 체제에 대한 충성을 만들어내는 이런 소재로 활용하는 측면도 있고 또 SLBM의 성공 자체가 미국이나 국제사회를 한편으로 압박하는 그런 효과가 있기 때문에 북한으로서는 이런 것들을 최대한 활용하면서 체제 강화 또 그것이 군사적인 부분이든 또는 체제 내부 결속이든 그런 쪽의 강화에 많은 부분 이것을 활용할 가능성이 높다고 봅니다. 외교관들이 앞으로도 탈북할 가능성은 간헐적으로 탈북할 가능성이 있다고 봅니다. 그 과정에서 북한이 내부의 그런 안전장치를 마련하는 차원에서 25세 이상의 자녀들의 귀국령뿐만 아니라 자녀들을 외국으로 데려가지 못하게 하거나 또는 충분한 그 사상 검증 사업들을 보다 펼치면서 외교관들에 대한 관리 이런 것들로 갈 가능성이 있다. 또 내부적으로도 사상 개조 또는 사상 강조 이걸 통해서 북한 내부의 그런 체제의 어떤 이완 현상들을 막는 그런 쪽으로 조치를 취할 가능성이 높다고 봅니다. 지금의 남북관계가 강대강의 대결 구도이지만 이제는 한편으로는 북한에 대해서 압박을 하면서도 또 다른 차원에서는 대화도 병행하는 그래서 좌우의 양날개를 함께 날게 하는 것이 필요하다. 대화 압박의 병행 그것의 조화 속에서 남북관계에서 뭔가 변화된 모습들을 펼칠 필요가 있다고 봅니다.
It took a few days to hear from North Korea's state media about the escape of Deputy Ambassador Tae Young-ho and his family to the south. In fact, in a KCNA commentary, the North claimed that Tae had fled after committing several crimes, which is a tactic that's been used by Pyongyang in the past. What does Pyongyang hope to gain?
Well, in other words, they want to protect their leadership because that in case of Tae Young-ho, he is a well-known diplomat in North Korea, and if he defected to South Korea, and if the North Koreans knows about this defection, definitely can be a huge damage on the leadership or the North Korean regime itself. So definitely by the denounce Mr. Tae as one of the criminals, definitely maybe they can downgrade the people who defected South Korea. I mean, that is the easiest way for them to protect the leadership and its regime itself.
Well, there are reports about the possibility of the North Korean regime facing extreme instability. President Park Geun-hye herself this week said that there are signs of serious cracks emerging in the north. What could be some factors that are weighing down the Kim Jong-un regime?
Well, serious cracks inside North Korean leadership seems to be based upon the fading effect of the revolutionary ideology. Think about this. Even in South Korea, we are talking about generational gaps. Different generations in South Korea have a different personal remembrance or experience of, say, Korean War or the early days of the economic development. What about North Korea? Well, if a North Korean person is born immediately after the truce signed to end the Korean War in 1953, the person should be now 62 years old. What about the end of the Cold War? If a North Korean who is born at the end of the Cold War was born in 1989, then the person should be 26 years old, must be a senior soldier. So it's a fading effect of the revolutionary spirit that the republic is on the verge of being swallowed, invaded and swallowed by the US imperialist, is no longer as effective to rally North Korean population as it used to be. Then, in case of China, the system to be sustaining itself, it has to come up with alternative ideology around which the entire population would be mobilized to support and swear undying allegiance to the leadership. The solution for the Deng Xiaoping government of China in 1978 was to replace the communist revolution with the idea of constantly improving people's living standard. Prosperity replaced communist revolution. But in case of North Korea, after 3 generations of the hereditary successions, it sticks to the same old ideology. Socialist revolution to liberate the South Korean brothers from the occupation of US imperialists. The same ideology cannot be forever effective as it used to be. So the defections this time is far more shocking and damaging to Kim Jong-un leadership is that it shows, it is indicative of the lack of appeal of the communist revolution to the North Korean population.
Especially in this day and age when we're getting increasing reports that North Koreans themselves are now exposed to more outside culture.
Definitely. The 90% of all the trade North Koreans conduct is made through China. And think about the amount of the sensitive information that will come with the trading good from China to expose the North Korean population to a very objective understanding of the outside world. Then it is neither prosperity provided by the leadership nor appeal of the communist revolution or liberation of the Korean peninsula from the American imperialists. Then North Koreans has no reasons to support Kim Jong-un leadership, who has not shown any verifiable record that it will deliver the result for the people.
So how do we explain the growing number of defections by North Korea's elites and middle class?
Well, we have to look at the numbers of the defectors number, particularly elite members and people from the middle class people from in North Korea. Over the last 2 or 3 years, the number of the such defectors reached 40, about 40. And when we asked them the reason why they escaped from North Korea, surprisingly, the number one the reason why they escaped was because they lost any hope about the North Korean regime itself. They insist that the North Korean regime exists only for Kim's family. And if I give you more figures about the data supporting this kind of arguments, the Ministry of Unification has conducted the survey with the defectors every year. And according to the survey, for 4 years from 2010 to 2013, the number one reason why they escaped from North Korea was economic difficulties. About 40.1% people answered because of economic difficulties they escaped from North Korea. And how about the 3 years? From 2014 up to 2016, the largest number of the defectors answered as a reason of their defection was the dissatisfaction about North Korean regime. They answered, 64.9% people answered because of dissatisfaction about the North Korean regime itself, they escaped from North Korea.
So the reasons are changed.
So considering this kind of things, definitely the number one reason at the moment for the escape of the elite group from North Korea to South Korea is the dissatisfaction of the leadership.
Well, this trend of defections by the middle class is also noted in a survey conducted by Seoul's Unification Ministry. Before 2001, only 19% of the defectors who had just arrived in the South said that they had an average income back home. But after 2014, that figure climbed to nearly 56%, a near threefold increase over the years. So the big question now is, will this trend continue, and what will it mean for the Kim Jong-un regime? I remember last week you said, Dr. Bong, that this may be a symptom of instability, but not necessarily the cause.
Right. When the symptom persist and get worse, then it might be constituting a cause of the illness. Because it drives the kind of a self-fulfilling prophecy that when people see signs that indicating that situations are getting worse and worse, not improving, then it would become a part of the reality that people would accept. So people will, incline to seriously considering that it might be opportune time to jump off the ship that is sinking. There's no way the ship to avoid the eventual sinking. So that all these signs, if not properly controlled by the North Korean leadership, will make a very negative and powerful psychological impact on ordinary North Koreans. And it is very interesting that I observed that Kim Jong-un, compared to his father, Kim Jong-il, seems to be extremely sensitive to recent defections of its citizens. In the past, when there was a massive defections in 1990s and early 2000s, Kim Jong-il, his father, seems to be quite relaxed. He even was reported to say that if they want to leave our republic, then let them go. I mean, we can just maintain the purity of our system. I mean, we don't have to forcefully include the members who do not accept the supreme system of the socialism in North Korea. But Kim Jong-un this time wasted no time to install 3,000 additional landmines in DMZ areas.
Right.
That is not to deter South Korean soldiers to come across the DMZ, but it is to prevent North Korean soldiers to cross over.
But I think if I had one thing more, he's still in the early 30s. His leadership is not fully settled down in North Korea. We can guess how nervous he is. Insecure, because that, you know, his followers, his steps are much older than him, and then he does not have his father and grandfather. Of course, he is using the leadership, in some sense.
Right.
But
I'm really happy that you raised the important point, because people are watching. People are in North Korea watching how leadership is reacting to the defections.
Right.
The sign of nervousness, pent-up emotional response, do not really help soothe the anxiety brewing amongst the North Korean citizens. If the leadership seems to be lacking confidence compared to his father, then the concern or suspicion that, oh my God, the system must be sinking. There must be a serious cracks in our system. Will get worse.
Actually, when the government, Minister of Unification asked the defectors, North Korean defectors, how do you think about the Kim Jong-un leadership? Surprisingly, about more than 50% responded quite positively. This is very important. How it could be possible? Because that the North Korean regime perfectly prevent ordinary people from contacting the news coming from outside North Korea. So that is very agony which Kim Jong-un has. If they could not control the separate North Koreans from the outside world, definitely it can be a direct threat to his leadership. So those kind of things have made him be very sensitive about what's happening around the world.
Yes, Pyongyang has been quite vocal about these defections in its broadcast to the outside world, but maybe not so much within the society itself. Now, as Dr. Bong mentioned, it's been laying landmines on its side of Panmunjom to deter defections. It also stepped up its rhetoric against Seoul-Washington joint military drills, threatening a preemptive nuclear strike. It also test-fired another SLBM on Wednesday. We can probably expect these provocations to continue.
Yes, continue for a while. We can think about this question. What can North Korean government do at the moment? Tae-yong-ho's Mr. Tae's defection to South Korea led to the threat of the terrorist attack against South Korea. There is a report that North Koreans sent a hit team to China, or even they can send some assassinators to South Korea to kill the North Korean defectors. And then, as you said before, they just launched SLBM. According to the report, it was quite successful because it flight more than 500 kilometers. So definitely, I think those things can be the things which they can do to protect their leadership. If they implement the real, more provocative action, military action, it can escalate the tensions between South and North Korea. well, certainly it is quite burdensome considering the economic and political situations facing North Korea. So definitely, I think at the moment, those things are available options to North Korean government.
Right, but the provocations toward the United States, Japan, and South Korea cannot really fundamentally the underlying problem. The reason why there has been increasing number of defections from North Korea, as we discussed right now, is because these people are not satisfied with the system. It is not the problem with outside world, but it is their dissatisfaction with the North Korean system.
Right.
So unless the North Korean system is improved and provide the things and values that the North Korean citizens want, starting from the improving living standard, then this defection problem cannot be solved by just provoking the outside powers, South Korea and the United States.
Right.
Amidst all this, the top diplomats from South Korea, China, and Japan met for talks in Tokyo. The complex web of competing geopolitical interests had many people following closely. Here's a wrap-up of the results.
During the first gathering in a year and 5 months among Seoul, Beijing, and Tokyo's foreign ministers, 3 issues took center stage. In the early hours on the day of the meeting, Pyongyang had test-fired another missile, prompting the top diplomats to call for restraint.
本日の会議では、日中間で、国連安保理を含む国際社会の取り組みを主導し、北朝鮮に対し挑発行動の自制や安保理決議の遵守を強く求めていくことを確認いたしました。
이 지역 최대 안보 위협인 북한의 핵과 미사일 도발과 관련해서 핵 불용, 북한의 추가 도발 억지, 안보리 결의 충실한 이행 등에 대한 공동 인식을 재확인하였습니다. 이와 관련해서 본인은 유엔 안보리 이사국인 일본과 중국 정부가 안보리 결의 2275의 충실한 이행에 협조해주고 있는 데 대해서 높이 평가한 바 있습니다.
中方将会继续坚持实现半岛无核化目标，坚持通过对话和协商来解决问题，坚持维护好半岛的和平与稳定，这是中方的一贯的坚定不移的立场。
On the issue of trilateral summit talks, the ministers agreed to work towards holding the meeting in Japan within the year. The 3 parties also shared their commitment on realizing a trilateral free trade deal as well as expanding cooperation on counterterrorism, environmental issues, and exchange programs for teenagers. Seoul and Beijing sat down for bilateral talks as well. The meeting was of greater significance, taking place on the 24th anniversary for Seoul and Beijing's establishment of diplomatic ties. While the 2 ministers reaffirmed their differences on the THAAD deployment issue, they also share the commitment to keep communication channels wide open. During bilateral talks with Japan's foreign minister, the 2 sides discussed the progress made on the agreement of sexual slavery. The Japanese government approved its 1 billion yen contribution to a foundation established in Korea to help victims of sexual slavery. At the earliest, the transfer will be made within the month, concluding the implementation of the deal. As neighboring countries, South Korea, China, and Japan face very similar issues and challenges, and in times of competing geopolitical interests, cooperation among the 3 parties will remain crucial.
Well, the North Korean nuclear threat was a common issue that brought these top diplomats together. Nevertheless, there was still a very chilly air between Korea and China. How do we break out of this stalemate?
Well, the things are moving in a positive direction, although there is still clearly underlying problems between the 2 countries. But China has maintained quite a muted and measured attitude towards South Korea since the announcement of the scheduled deployment of THAAD. It is very comparable to its quiet diplomacy toward the ASEAN countries after the Permanent Arbitration Court ruled against China's claim based upon 9 dash lines for its sovereignties in the South China Sea. So China has been maintaining rather pragmatic, quiet diplomacy toward the ASEAN countries with regard to the South China Sea situations and towards South Korea on the THAAD. So we need to wait and see until there's some different signs that China is going to take hawkish policies towards South Korea. It is notable that 3 countries, including China, wholeheartedly agreed to marshal collective effort to make the upcoming trilateral summit meeting in Japan a success. So the spirit of cooperation is predominant rather than the tension among 3 countries.
What about spirit of cooperation on the economic front between Korea and China with the THAAD issue in the middle?
Well, I think a few weeks ago we discussed this issue already, but I think China will be very careful in taking some retaliatory action against Korea because of deployment of THAAD. Because of 2 reasons. There could be several others, but I want to pick up 2 main reasons. The first one is, in fact, when you look at the value-added chain in the economic cooperation between Korea and China, we can get the first answer. That is that the main exporting items of Korean industries to China have been the components, intermediate products. And the Chinese economy has been promoted by using Korean-made intermediate products to make the final products, which have been the major exporting items to other countries. So if they give a damage on the Korean industry, which means that they will have the damages indirectly, which means that they will have some difficulties in exporting the products as they have done so far. So this is one of the practical reasons why Chinese government has been very careful in taking retaliatory action in the economic front. And second one is Chinese government, well, as you know well, that China has get the status of G2 in the world. Well, so they have been asked by the global community to play the leaders in the world. So the Chinese government has made every effort to build a good image as a member of WTO. If take a retaliatory action unilaterally against South Korean economy, that can be a fatal blow against the reputation as the member of WTO. Which they have put the first priority on. So they want to keep those kind of reputations. So this is the second reason why I said that Chinese government will be very careful in taking retaliatory action in the economic front.
What about Korea-Japan relations? Are we ready to let bygones be bygones and move on?
Well, certainly it's moving on in the direction of completing the December 28th agreement. The important turning point was the cabinet decisions to provide 1 billion yen for the establishment of the a foundation. So things are moving steadily in the direction, and neither Korea nor Japan would want to let the historical issues as a major obstacle to enhancing the bilateral and multilateral security cooperations in the aftermath of North Korea launching another missile test, SLBM test. So security concerns are prevailing over differences between 2 countries over how to proceed with the foundation.
In other news, on the economic front, the Korean won has been setting off some alarm bells in recent weeks, showing strong gains and extreme volatility. What does this mean for the economy? Take a look.
After rapidly weakening at the end of June, the Korean won saw a sharp ascent against the US dollar in the following 2 months, hitting its strongest point this year to date on August 16th. Following Britain's decision back in July to leave the EU, central banks and major economies cut interest rates deeper, making the Korean market more attractive. A record-high bump in the country's sovereign credit rating also contributed to the inflow of foreign capital. The Japanese yen has also appreciated sharply against the greenback, gaining 1.63% since July, but the Korean won has surged by 5.46%. What further weighs down prospects for the Korean economy is slumbering global trade. In the first half of this year, the trade value of 71 major trade economies dropped by 5.4% compared to the same period last year. For Korean exporters, a strong won coupled with sagging demand spells nothing but trouble. For Korean automakers, the local currency strengthening by 10 won against the dollar typically means a $375 million loss in sales. Things are not much different for electronics companies. Firms have seen sharp losses in the second quarter due to currency fluctuations. Additional strengthening of the won will inevitably challenge corporate performance. At the other end of the spectrum are airliners, which can expect to shed some of their dollar-denominated debt on won strength. Raw materials will also become more affordable for some companies. With expectations slowly on the rise for a possible rate hike in September by the U.S. Federal Reserve, more volatility in the foreign exchange market is likely to be on the horizon.
Well, the Korean won is very volatile. And part of the reason is that we got rid of a lot of the barriers for short-term financial investment after the Asian financial crisis in 1997. Because we need to get a lot of dollars very quickly back then, we removed a lot of barriers for foreign investment, especially in the short term. So now what we see happening is when Korean assets are attractive, you see a lot of capital coming in very quickly. And whenever there's an international crisis or international instability, you see a lot of people putting their money out of Korean won, putting it into safer assets like the Japanese yen or US dollar. So we see a lot of fluctuation to begin with. And the problem is worsened because the Korean won foreign exchange market is so small. So even a relatively moderate amount of transactions can have a large effect on the exchange rates. My feeling is that the appreciation of the won will not hurt as much as it did in the last decade or 1990s. And the reason is because there's a lack of global demand. It's going to hurt Korean exports, but it's not going to hurt it that badly because we're suffering a global slowdown. So even if we did have price competitiveness, we probably won't see that much higher exports to begin with. Well, whenever you have a production facility that's located abroad, you can escape some of the problems of appreciating Korean won. Of course, the problem is when we have a depreciating won, then we have the exact opposite problem. So from a country's point of view or from a large company's point of view, it's best to sort of diversify. Have some of your facilities in Korea, some of your facilities where you do a lot of your business in. And that's actually helpful for both of your countries, not only Korea, but for your trading partner as well.
So what is triggering this won volatility?
Well, simply, in a words, definitely because of the economic difficulties in USA. Well, the exchange rate between Korean won against USA dollar has been weakened over the last several months, particularly since the February this year. But before this trends, for about the 1 year, more exactly since the April 2015, the USA dollar was stronger than before. But the reason is this. The USA government has used physical and financial policies to protect their economy. So considering the current situation, I think considering economic difficulties facing USA, definitely the possibility of the USA government has increased the interest rates. If they lower the interest rates, more money will be provided to the market. Then the exchange rate between Korean won against the USA dollar will be stronger than before. It's not good for us for a while. For the time being. So, and then another point actually which I want to pinpoint is that the Korean won against USA dollar became stronger faster than any other countries. This is very important. That means it's quite burdensome on the Korean economy, considering economic structure of Korean economy, which is heavily relying on external relations. Definitely it can be a burdensome. So next question is then, how the Korean government can they control this situation. The government can intervene in the foreign exchange market, but this is not easy at the moment for Korean government because of the USA government, the policy. Well, in fact, according to the market, one of the complaints, one of the main reasons why we have such a kind of the fast and stronger rise of the Korean value against the USA dollar was because so-called benevolent neglect. That means government should intervene in the market, but they did not jump into the market. This is the complaint of the Korean industries about Korean government. But the American government has very totally different views. The Korean government has too excessively and persistently jumped to intervene in the foreign exchange market. This is the reason why they included Korea on the monitoring list the last April. The last April, the Department of Treasury made a report on the foreign exchange policies of major trading partners of the USA. The 5 countries were included on the monitoring list. Korea was one of them. So they asked the Korean government should not intervene in the FX market, foreign exchange market, to prevent the Korean won from weakening against USA dollar. But actually, as I said before, the Korean industries have totally different views. The government should do something. This is the difficulty which the Korean government has in dealing with this issue.
So a lot of it depends on which direction the Fed moves. We've heard hawkish statements from some of the Fed members, but we've been getting a lot of mixed messages as well. Are there political factors that could be influencing Fed policies?
Well, there's no verifiable evidence that the political factors are actually working, but it seems like the Fed will be cautious because, first of all, the job situation, the employment rate is still in a very healthy rate, around 4.9%. So why do you want to ruffle the feather when things are not too bad? And this is election year, so whether you increase or decrease the basic interest rate, then some portion of the population will be hurting, then they will generate political implications. There is a rumor that if Donald Trump wins the presidential election in November, then if he will keep his election platforms and force deportation of the illegal immigrants, which will disrupt the labor market and wage a protective trade policy, then Fed will become extremely active in order to stabilize the market. But before that point to arrive, I don't think the Fed will make any drastic change.
Professor Shin mentioned how Korea is on the U.S. watch list for FX practices, so Seoul needs to be careful about intervening in the FX market. In fact, a recent report from Nomura Holdings suggests that if Donald Trump wins the election, the risk of Korea being accused of currency manipulation will increase. What's the correlation there?
What I heard is that whether it is Trade Facilitation and Trade Enforcement Act of 2015 or not, Trump is determined to trump Asian economies in the name of making America great again. So it's really depend upon the top leaders' philosophy and determination to go after these Asian trading partners, whether they are liable for currency manipulation.
Well, a stronger won means more trouble for Korean exporters. How long do you expect this trend to last?
I think it can continue for a while because, when you look at the American economy and the global economy, well, we cannot see any blue signs, bright signs, blue signals from them. So for a while, we will face such a kind of difficulties. But the most important question we have to find an answer is that how we can deal with this situation. I think even though the government has many limited options available, but definitely Korean government should stabilize the financial sector. How is very long story, but definitely Korean government's right now making every effort. But as we discussed before for the last several weeks, definitely political stability seems to be more important for us to achieve the economic stability. So political stability goes with the economic stability. So I think this one is, the very important thing for the politicians and government officials.
Well, thank you two very much for sharing your thoughts with us today. Thank you. That is all for this edition of News Inside. Thanks for watching. We'll be back with more next week.